I'm Jeremy. Today's day 164 reading. Today reading Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Let's get started. We're on page 217. Dear Mr. Hagrid, further to our inquiry into the attack of a hippogriff on a student in your class, we have accepted the assurances of Professor Dumbledore that you bear no responsibility for the regrettable incident. Well, that's okay then, Hagrid, said Ron, clapping Hagrid on the shoulder. But Hagrid continued to sob and waved one of his gigantic hands, inviting Harry to read on. However, we must register our concerns about the hippogriff in question. We have decided to uphold the official complaint of Mr. Lucius Malfoy, and this matter will therefore be taken to the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures. The hearing will take place on April 20th, and we ask you to present yourself and your hippogriff at the committee's offices in London on that date. In the meantime, the hippogriff should be kept tethered and isolated. Yours in fellowship. There followed a list of school governors. Oh, said Ron, but you said Buckbeak isn't a bad hippogriff, Hagrid. I bet he'll get off. You don't know them gargoyles at the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures, choked Hagrid, wiping his eyes on his sleeve. They've got it in for interesting creatures. A sudden sound came from the corner of Hagrid's cabin, made Harry and Ron and Hermione whip around. Buckbeak the hippogriff was lying in the corner, chomping on something that was oozing blood all over the floor. I couldn't leave him tied up out there in the snow, choked Hagrid, all on his own, at Christmas. Harry, Ron, and Hermione looked at one another. They had never seen eye to eye with Hagrid about what he called interesting creatures, and other people called terrifying monsters. On the other hand, there didn't seem to be any particular harm in Buckbeak. In fact, by Hagrid's usual standards, he was positively cute. You have to put up a good, strong defense, Hagrid, said Hermione, sitting down and laying a hand on Hagrid's massive forearm. I'm sure you can prove Buckbeak is safe. Well, it'll make no difference, sobbed Hagrid. Them disposal devils, they're all in Lucius Malfoy's pocket, scared of him. And if I lose the case, Buckbeak... Hagrid drew his finger swiftly across his throat, then gave a great wail and lurched forward, his face in his arms. What about Dumbledore, Hagrid? Said Harry. He's done more than enough for me already, groaned Hagrid. Got enough on his plate with keeping them Dementors out of the castle, and Sirius Black lurking around. Ron and Hermione looked quickly at Harry, as though expecting him to start berating Hagrid for not telling him the truth about Black. But Harry couldn't bring himself to do it, not now that he saw Hagrid so miserable and scared. Listen, Hagrid, he said, you can't give up. Hermione's right. You just need a good defense. You can call us as witnesses. I'm sure I've read about a case of hippogriff baiting, said Hermione thoughtfully, where the hippogriff got off. I'll look it up for you, Hagrid, and see exactly what happened. Hagrid howled still more loudly. Harry and Hermione looked at Ron to help them. Shall I make a cup of tea? Said Ron. Harry stared at him. It's what my mom does whenever someone's upset, muttered Ron, shrugging. At last, after many more assurances of help, with the steaming mug of tea in front of him, Hagrid blew his nose on a handkerchief the size of a tablecloth, and said, You're right, I can't afford to go to pieces. Gotta pull myself together. Fang the Boarhound came timidly out from under the table and laid his head on Hagrid's knee. I've not been myself lately, said Hagrid, stroking Fang with one hand and mopping his face with the other. Worried about Buckbeak, and no one liking me classes. We do like them, replied Hermione at once. Yeah, they're great, said Ron, crossing his finger under the table. How are the flobberworms? Dead, said Harry gloomily. Too much lettuce. Oh no, said Ron, his lips twitching. And then Dementors make me feel ruddy terrible and all, said Hagrid with a sudden shudder. Gotta walk past him every time I want a drink in the Three Broomsticks. It's like being back in Azkaban. He fell silent, gulping his tea. Harry, Ron, and Hermione watched him breathlessly. They had never heard Hagrid talk about his brief spell in Azkaban before. After a pause, Hermione said timidly, Is it awful in there, Hagrid? You have no idea, said Hagrid quietly. Never been anywhere like it. Thought I was going mad. Kept going over horrible stuff in me mind. The day I got expelled from Hogwarts, day me dad died, day I had to let Norbert go. His eyes filled with tears. Norbert was the baby dragon Hagrid had once won in a game of cards. You can really remember who you are after a while, and you can't see the point of living at all. I used to hope I'd just die in my sleep. When they let me out, it was like being born again. Everything came flooding back, and it was the best feeling in the world. Mind, the Dementors weren't keen on letting me go. But you were innocent, said Hermione. Hagrid snorted. Think that matters to them? They don't care, long as they've got a couple of 100 humans stuck there with them so they can leech all the happiness out of them. They don't give a damn who's guilty and who's not. Hagrid went quiet for a moment, staring into his tea. Then he said quietly, Thought of just letting Buckbeak go, trying to make him fly away. But how do you explain to a hippogriff it's got to go into hiding? And I'm scared of breaking the law. He looked up at them, tears leaking down his face again. I don't ever want to go back to Azkaban. The trip to Hagrid's, though far from fun, had nevertheless had the effect Ron and Hermione had hoped. Though Harry had by no means forgotten about Black, he couldn't brood constantly on revenge if he wanted to help Hagrid with his case against the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures. He, Ron, and Hermione went to the library the next day and returned to the empty common room laden with books that might help prepare a defense for Buckbeak. The three of them sat in front of the roaring fire, slowly turning the pages of dusty volumes about famous cases of marauding beasts, speaking occasionally when they ran across something relevant. Here's something. There was a case in 1722, but the hippogriff was convicted. Ugh, look at what they did to it. That's disgusting. This might help. Look, a manticore savaged someone in 12,096, and they let the manticore off. Oh, no, that was only because everyone was too scared to go near it. Meanwhile, in the rest of the castle, the usual magnificent Christmas decorations had been put up, despite the fact that hardly any of the students remained to enjoy them. Thick streamers of holly and mistletoe were strung all along the corridors. Mysterious lights shone from inside every suit of armor, and the great hall was filled with its usual 12 Christmas trees, glittering with golden stars. A powerful and delicious smell of cooking pervaded the corridors, and by Christmas Eve it had grown so strong that even Scabbers poked his nose out of the shelter of Ron's pocket to sniff hopefully at the air. On Christmas morning, Harry was woken by Ron throwing his pillow at him. Oi! Presents! Harry reached for his glasses and put them on, squinting in the semi-darkness to the foot of his bed, where a small heap of parcels had appeared. Ron was already ripping the paper off his own presents. Another sweater from Mom. Maroon. Again. See if you got one. Harry had. Mrs. Weasley had sent him a scarlet sweater with the Gryffindor lion knitted on the front. Also a dozen home-baked mince pies, some Christmas cake, and a box of nut brittle. As he moved all these things aside, he saw a long, thin package lying underneath. What's that? Said Ron, looking over.